Hello, I'm back here with another in-depth video on a Def Leppard song. If you haven't seen my first one on Let It Go, I recommend checking it out as I also explain a bit more about the format of these videos. Essentially, it's just a chance for me to look at a song while offering some tutorials for beginners, intermediates, and advanced players as well. One thing I'm going to add in this video is a section dedicated to me correcting anything I got wrong in my cover, so that should be quite fun. Anyway, let's get going with this one. Another Hit and Run is the second track from High and Dry and is a composition credited to Savage and Elliott. According to Setlist FM, it's the 18th most played song by the band live, just ahead of Make Love Like a Man, and a bit behind the song Guitar Solo, which must be a rare B-side because I've never heard of that one.
I'm joking, of course. Shall we go in and I'll show...
We should actually just take Guitar Solo out and move everything else up one. In fact, no, let's not do that, because that means Rock On would then be 19th. Let's keep Guitar Solo in, keep Rock On as low as possible. Anyway, apparently Another Hit and Run was first played in 1981 in Germany and has not been played since the Viva Hysteria residency. I'm quite surprised by that. That means it hasn't been played for 6 years? Kind of makes me doubt the accuracy of this information, so if you can confirm or debunk this, leave a comment and let me know. I really like this song. Again, it's not my favourite from High and Dry, but I think it would place third behind Lady Strange and Mirror Mirror. It's just a great high energy rocker with an excellent riff, and I quite like how the song features that riff 3 times in different incarnations. There's a variation on the verse, the chorus, and then we have the clean variation for the bridge and the intro. It just gets great mileage out of that idea. So lyrically, again, I can't quite comment on them because I don't process them as anything other than syllable sounds. But I do know it's not your typical party drinking song, so therefore it's a little bit more sophisticated in that aspect. There's one final thing I'd like to touch on with the vocals that I think deserves some attention, and that is a note Joe hits right at the end. At the tail of the last chorus, he goes like this. This note here is an E5. It's an E in the 5th octave. This probably doesn't mean anything to you, but let me put the note in a context so you can appreciate how impressive that is. The high scream at the end of Photograph, just before the outro solo, starts on an E5. The scream before the first solo in Women is also an E5, I think it could be Joe's third highest singing note in a screaming context, if not his second highest. In Billy's Got a Gun, he reaches an F5, just a semitone above, in one of the bridges, where it goes like... He's briefly up to that F5 there, which again is seriously high. Now there's a video on Joe's vocal range that lists a G5 as his highest note in Die Hard the Hunter, but I don't quite hear that example as a G. It's basically this bit here. So I hear that more as where he goes down to a B4 before finally hitting that E5, but I think they hear it as they go up, Joe goes up to the G5 then down to an E. Like I say, I don't quite hear it like that. But there is a definite G5 in Women, but it's a harmony that could be mutt. Just before the last chorus, so there are 2 different harmonies there. The main one, which Joe would do live, E5, D5, E5. But on the record, that harmony is G5, F sharp 5, G5. It gives that sound. So if that is Joe, then a G5 is his definite highest note there with an F sharp 5. Just for a final tidbit, he does hit an F sharp 5 at the end of Promises. But like I say, it's in a falsetto, which isn't as impressive. It is still impressive, but it's not the same as that screamy vocal context. The fact that Joe is hitting this high note, the E5, in a screamy type vocal, like on High and Dry, it's only a year after Onto the Night, and it's before he got proper vocal lessons from Mutt's ex-wife during the Pyromania recording sessions. I just think it's quite impressive, really, so I thought it deserved just a little bit of a mention there. Tutorial for the beginners, we're going to be looking at this riff here. It should sound something like this. So, see that diagram I showed there? That's tab. That's notation. That's how we can read what we want to play here. And essentially you read it like this. See that bottom line? That represents the bottom string. Bottom in pitch. We're always going to be talking about pitch when I say bottom or top. The high line represents the highest string, the high E. All those numbers represents these frets over the fretboard. The 0 is an open string. So we're going to take that first chord shape. Now, I'm saying chord shape, we're not playing a chord here. Well, here's a little tip. Whenever you see something like this, and let's say you don't have the visual reference of me showing you how to play it, try and put these notes into chord shapes, because otherwise you're going to be bouncing around the fretboard and it's not very economical in playing. So if I take those first 4 notes, I'm going to try and fit them in a chord shape, rather than play them like... It doesn't make sense. However, playing it like... That makes sense. Okay? So, take your first finger. This is my first finger, because 1, 2, 3, 4, first finger. I'm going to put it on that second fret of the D string. D string's the 3rd string up from the lowest. Now when we're fretting, we're in this 2nd fret here, we want to get as close to the metal bar above it as possible, because that gives it a clear sounding note. And when we put pressure or force on the string, we don't want to bend it, like press too hard, so we're going to go sharp otherwise. Just want to put enough pressure on so the note starts ringing out. Okay, the next note, 5th of the G string. Now, I'm using my pinky here, and the pinky's going to feel very weird to use at the start, but trust me, the earlier you start implementing this finger, the more it's going to pay off later on. So please try with your pinky here. It's going to make things a lot easier for you. Now we're just going to be doing something like this to start out. Just get used to how this feels. Just keep going over that chord shape, nice and relaxed. Look at my picking hand. It's this hand here. Look what I'm doing. Down stroking that first open A. Up stroking the G and then the D. That's going to help us when we start playing this riff up to speed. So you're getting comfortable with that? Well, let's move on to the next little chord shape. And all we're going to be doing here is moving our pinky down 1 fret. Now, when we're moving that pinky down, I'm not lifting off and then putting it back on. That's too much work. I do not want to do too much work here. Just slide it down. See if you can get comfortable with that. And see if you can do it in a way where you're not muting the other notes we're ringing out. All guitar playing is trying to do the least amount of work as possible, because we're all lazy basically, and that's how you sound good. The lazier you are, the better you sound in that context. But you need to work hard to be lazy as well. That's what a lot of people don't understand. So, are you comfortable with those 2 chord shapes? Here comes the 3rd chord shape. We're sliding up, so we're hitting the 7th of the G with our pinky, and the 5th of the D with my first finger. So I should have said 4th finger there, and my first finger. Now, the little subtle thing about this riff, which is how you know it's played this way and not like... as it used to be tabbed out on some tab sites that I looked at when I was like 12, is that you can hear that slide. You can hear, even though we don't play that 5th fret of the D note straight away, we go, we slide up. You can hear that 5th fretted note in the slide. We can hear that before we then go. That's just a little subtle thing about that riff. So when we're on that second chord shape, do not lift off and slide up. Slide with everything held down. Okay. Something like that. Just take it nice and easy so you can get used to these chord shapes here. Slight change there. We're then gonna hit that 5th fret of the G by flattening out that first finger there. So basically making this little chord shape. Then we kind of mute and go to that last chord shape, the 2-2-0. And we repeat again. Okay. Now just take your time building that up. And what's great about this riff is, once you get used to those chord shapes, well, hey, you can pretty much play the rest of the song. Okay, so give that a go and see what it's like. I'd like to talk about the breakdown for a little bit here. First of all, I think it's pretty cool that they were able to put something like this in the song, and it makes you think that, or it makes you wonder whether they were able to think ahead and put this in the song and use it live as a chance to get the crowd going, because they all seem to use the break and another hit and run to kind of do a bit of crowd interaction and get them going a bit. So I think it's actually really cool songwriting that, one, they might have thought it'd be cool to implement that in a song so we could do that live, and if that wasn't the case, two, anyway, it's just a great use of dynamics. You know, like I say, it's a very high energy song, and having the breakdown section where it gets all quiet is pretty accomplished writing as well. But live, they would go into a riff on the Pyromania tour, at least, and in that breakdown section they'd go into a riff and it would sound something like this. Now, some of you may already might be able to hear where that is also being used, but of course that's in the little bridge section before the solo of Don't Shoot Shotgun, that same riff. So, do you think that when they came up with that riff to do in the little breakdown of Another Hit and Run on the Pyromania tour, did they think, oh, that'd be a great riff to use in a song, and therefore put it in Don't Shoot Shotgun, or do you think it was just coincidence? I don't know. But what I do think would be pretty cool, and I know that Def Leppard aren't really a band that do medleys as such. They did that acoustic medley, but maybe not so much on the big songs because of the production aspect. But maybe it'd be fun if they did another hit and run, they went into that breakdown, and at the end of that breakdown they just went straight into Don't Shoot Shotgun. I think that'd sound pretty cool. Tutorial for the intermediates. We're going to be looking at the lead part of the intro. It should sound something like this. It makes use of a pedal note. Now a pedal note is just a sustaining note basically, and the pedal note here is the G on the 15th fret of the high E. I like to use my pinky as much as possible, so I'm using that for that pedal note. For the first two shapes here, I'm just sliding my first finger down from the 13th of the B to the 12th. When we come to that third chord, I bring my third finger in for the 15th of the B. I think that should be pretty straightforward to do. The picking motion's all down picking, so it's not too difficult in that aspect, and those changes should be okay. Here's the maybe tricky part of it when we're sliding up to this last chord shape, the 17th of the B and the 15th of the high E. The way I fret that, I use my third finger for the 17th of the B, my first finger for the 15th of the high E. Now obviously we're lifting off here, so there's going to be a gap in the sustaining notes. So to try and hide that, what do? I do something a little interesting here. I go... I introduce a little upstroke in there to kind of cover that little mute in the sustained notes. So something like that I think just gives me a little bit of time so I can move basically my whole hand up to my fretted notes of choice there. Now one variation, which is what I do in my cover, well, I'm not sure why I did it like this. I must have been listening to a live version, because when Viv would play this live, instead of that pedal note being the G on the high E, he'd use the 12th fret of the G string as that pedal note. So it gives a different sound. And it introduces a different chord for the last one, 13th of the B, 12th for the high E. So have fun with that one. The next little part I'd like to talk about is right before the first solo. There's a little hammer-on pull-off lick, which sounds something like this. There was quite a lot of delay there. Now I've always wondered how that was done, and I'd like to show you some ways of imitating that, which could be how it was originally done, might not be. But if I go to my trusty and humorously, questionably inaccurate tab book, they actually have a little note on this. Their suggestion is that on the record, it was done by speeding up the tape. So you get a guitar track doing that. You speed up the tape, it raises the pitch. You think, fair enough, that might be how it was done. However, when you speed the tape up, not only would it raise in pitch, it become quicker. The space between the two notes would be less and less. So to very much exaggerate it, to speed the tape up would be like this. In terms of the space between the notes. And I'm not sure if I hear that on the actual record. Or maybe it's subtle enough that you don't perceive it. I don't know. But I like to think it might be done another way. But first of all, let me show you how this book suggests you can imitate this. They suggest taking your high E string, tuning it all the way down to an A, that's quite a lot, starting the trill with a hammer-on pull-off, reaching over with your right hand, and then tuning back up the string to an E. Now, even if you weren't playing live, it's just too problematic for me, and there's easier ways to go about it. So, one way you can do this is like how I showed at the start. You can take that hammer-on pull-off, 7th of the B, 10th of the B. If you have a whammy bar, you can pull up on the whammy bar. Of course, if you have a lock-in system, you wouldn't be able to do that tuning trick anyway, because when you turn these and this is locked, it makes no difference. Another way to do it, which is the way Steve would do it live, and he would do this because he didn't have a tremolo unit to pull up on, is while he was doing the hammer and pull off, he would go behind the string and he would like pull the string, like give it more tension to raise the pitch. So it's something like this. Now my finger's in the way there, but basically I was just like pulling on the string. So that's another way to do it, and if you don't have a whammy bar, you can go about it like that. Now in later years when Viv took over the solo, he started by doing an ascending lick, which was something like this. And it's kind of a similar idea. So we're taking a hammer-on pull-off shape. So let's say we start on the 5th fret. We have the 5th fret of the high E, and then we also have the 8th fret. So we pull it from the 8th to the 5. Then we hit the 5th fret of the B. Move it all up a fret. And something like that. So if you want to imitate it, do it one of those 3 ways I just showed you there. Do not mess about your tuning pegs or anything like that. Okay, so for you advanced players, let's take a look at that second solo. Now, in order to show the example, I'm going to play along with the track just to make sure I'm staying in time. So it should sound something like this. Right, something like that. Now, I was always pretty comfortable playing that opening shreddy part where I've tabbed it out here 5-4-2 on the G string, but after playing that quite a few times in the last like half an hour, it's starting to become painful for me, especially with the way it's shaped sitting down. So maybe you might want to think about another way to play it. Why I chose to play it there, I don't know. Like I said, it did feel comfortable at first. I didn't want to use the open string of the B, you know. So I think when you get up to that speed, it's hard to control the length of the notes, especially with that open string. So I always felt comfortable playing 5-4-2 on the G. However, another alternative might be the 10-9-7 of the D. Might be easier to get that bend at the end in there as well. In terms of tips for getting up to speed, honestly, just relax. Relax and just let your fingers just glide and let the pick glide over the strings as well. The middle lick is my favourite part, the one which goes... I think that's pretty self-explanatory, the way it's tabbed out. This last bit is another bit I didn't quite get right in my cover, because I think there's a lot more notes. I actually think there's more notes in there that I've tabbed, but if you take what I've written there as the basis of it, it is something like... So it's kind of got a bit of a jump about it. Slide back down. So maybe the main opening bit is probably the most problematic, and once you get up to tempo, it might just seem like it goes by so fast. But have a go with it and see if you can get up to scratch. Okay, the last little cool part I'd like to point out is right at the end of the breakdown, before everything comes back in, you can hear a voice, which when I was young I used to think sounded like someone saying faster, faster. But in later years, I've heard it as bastard with a B. So I wanted to see if I could do anything to, like, highlight this little voice even more. Like maybe put some EQ on it and just turn it up so you can hear what it sounds like. I definitely think I can hear a like b type of noise, which would indicate to me that it's someone saying bastard, bastard. But see what you think. Alright, so last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to see if there's anything I need to correct or point out that I got wrong in my cover. So yeah, it looks like the end of Steve's solo I didn't quite get right. The way I've tabbed it I think is how it should be, where it's something like... Or if you don't want to play it with the open strings, you can do like. And then at the end of Pete's solo, I didn't quite get right, but we've covered that already. But I think that's pretty much it. The rest seems to be okay. Just poor lighting, that's all. That's pretty much it for another hit and run. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions on other features I can add to this video series, then please let me know. I've got all the example tabs linked in the description to like a public post where you can download them. And if you join my Patreon, you can get access to even more transcription notes for this song and other songs as well. But until the next time, take care and I'll see you later.